Hi everyone! So I recently discovered a Swedish YouTuber called Angelica, and I am really into her because she wears beautiful, vibrant makeup and is not ashamed about it. She is always talking about how neutrals are boring, and I was like, I am touched. I feel very interested and focused on what you're saying here. Tell me more. She did also put out a video recently called the limited edition tag, and she created the tag, and I thought the questions were really interesting because I really like talking about limited edition products, but it's not always welcome because people can't get their hands on it anymore. But I like the questions, I thought it was interesting, so I thought I would go ahead and film the tag. There are 10 questions and I'm just gonna dive straight in. The first one is, what is the limited edition product you are most happy you got your hands on? And this will come as no shock to anybody. It's the Kat Von D Mi Vida Loca Remix palette. I know there's a lot of people out there super regretful that they did not get their hands on this, but like, guys, I don't know what you were doing when this thing launched because this was previewed months in advance of the release date, and I was like, yes, this will be mine. I'm not sitting on it. I ordered it on day one, and I was going to own this thing come hell or high water. Because at the time, nothing had ever been released at Sephora that looked like this. This full-on rainbow wheel. I mean, the packaging is just terrible. It's pretty looking, but it is so not functional. But like, I can't believe that people ever hesitated on it because like, it is wonderful. And by the way, it did not sell out that quickly. It took like a month or two, I think, before it finally just disappeared. So there was ample opportunity to buy it, but I think people are super regretful now because those of us who own it won't shut up about it. And really it's because it is really good. So of all the things that I own, I am the most glad that I got my hands on this. But also there was never any question that I was going to own this. There was no moment where I was like, maybe I'll wait a week or two to see if I actually want it. No, I wanted this and I got that on release date. The next question is, what is the least favorite limited edition product you picked up? The thing that you could have been without? This garbage palette. I love Too Faced, we all know that. And I really like Nikki Tutorials. She's one of those YouTubers that I will watch almost anything that she puts out because she's so informative and her technique is incredible. But this palette launch was just such a bust. First of all, I'm not mad at the packaging. They had previously released a palette like this called Stardust that's very similar, and I'll talk about Stardust a bit later. So I'm not mad at the packaging because I actually find it quite functional. It's compact. There could have been a mirror here, but that doesn't really bother me. What bothers me is that these shadows are just crap. Like, the color combination is so, what were you thinking? So first of all, there's a little bit of everything in here. You got a bronzer, you got a highlighter, you got some blush, and then you've got like the most awkward array of eyeshadows you could have ever put together. Like, I don't know why they've done it. It's almost like they're like, we want to cover all the bases, so let's just jam everything into this palette. And I really don't think that it worked. I also feel like the quality is really terrible. Now, Too Faced is one of my favorite brands, but they do have a tendency to go completely off the rails with some of their limited edition palettes, and I think sadly that this is one of them. So one of the awkward things is that so many people will point out when a Too Faced collection is bad that it was made in China. This was made in the US. There is no excuse as to why this is bad. It just ended up being terrible. Not to mention, what the hell is this aesthetic? Like, this is not Nikki Tutorials. I don't see her wearing like pink leopard print with gold foil anywhere. It seems more Too Faced focused in that sense. And this was called The Power of Makeup, but like, to me, this doesn't represent much of what Nikki Tutorials really is. So I felt like this was just such a waste of space, and such a wasted opportunity too, because I feel like Nikki, perhaps given free reign, could have made something absolutely incredible. So I feel like this just feels like a bit of like tug of war between like creator and the brand. So I don't like this thing. I bought it because I like Nikki Tutorials, I like Too Faced, and I want to support that, but I never use this thing. The third question is, what brand do you think does limited edition best? And I really think I'm just gonna say Kat Von D for this. Her holiday collections, more specifically the palettes, are always stunners. So I've talked about the Mi Vida Loca Remix palette, which was a holiday launch years ago, and I'm just gonna bring out the Metal Matte palette from a few years ago as well. The quality is always good, and I think it's down to the fact that she puts out one palette. She doesn't go overboard and launch like 4 or 5. She takes her time, focuses on one stellar launch, and they are always good. So the metal matte, although like it has to be said, what is this packaging? This is so enormous. Why do they do this to us? But it does make it a really impressive gift to give, I must say. So this palette was such a winner with all of those basically foiled shadows at the top, alongside all of these mattes on the bottom. I love that there's not only just neutral colors, there's also like a chunk of bright colors for mattes. And I feel like Kat Von D does that really well. Got powder all over my hands now. She does a really good job of juxtaposing bright colors with neutrals, and I'm so grateful for that. So although I did not buy the holiday release this past year, just because I felt like that packaging was a little bit too much, it was too awkward, it was shaped like a cathedral window. I did hear that the quality was really good, so I'm kind of sad that I didn't get to try it out, but I also felt like the packaging was just like too cumbersome. Like, this is enough for me. However, the quality is always good, so I'm happy about that. The follow-up question to that one is, to flip things over, what brand do you feel does limited edition the worst? And I think a lot of people are gonna say Too Faced, just because they find like the consistency can be really different in their holiday launches. And I sort of agree, I see where people are coming from, but for the most part, I found them completely workable, like the eyeshadow palette, so I wouldn't veer towards Too Faced for that. The brand that I am gonna say tends to do limited edition the worst has to be Urban Decay, just because I feel like it's so all over the board with them. So when did they launch Vice 4? Because that palette, while beautiful from a packaging perspective, was just so bad on the inside. I was so disappointed with the shade selection. I didn't feel like they applied that well. I ended up giving it away to a friend because I was just like, I cannot look at this thing anymore. I'm so disappointed that I bought it. So that was just like, what is happening? And especially coming off of the year previous where they released Vice 3, which was such a good palette. I was excited to get Vice 4, and then when I got it, I was just like, this is a mess. And then the other one that they came out with that really pissed me off was the Full Spectrum palette. I was so excited for this thing. I mean, come on, look at this thing. It is like a vibrant rainbow lover's, you know, wet dream, basically. And this was just like, I couldn't figure out what was going on. None of the shadows seemed to work that well together. Some of them could be very dusty, some of them were patchy, some of them had pigmentation issues. And I don't know, every time I look at this palette, I'm just filled with sadness. And one of the most aggravating things that Urban Decay does with their limited edition launches is that they will put this out, get you super excited about it, you'll buy it because you're pumped, and then like 3 weeks later, they've like halved the price. I'm like, what is going on? So I bought this when it was like $71 Canadian, which made me choke a little bit. And then I think 3 weeks later, they dropped it to 40 bucks. And I was just like, excuse me? How dare you? I was so irritated, not only from the price perspective, but just because this was so not that exciting to use. And this is not like the first palette where they've dropped the price not long after release, and it's just really irritating. It's almost offensive. It's like you realize really quickly that this palette is not gonna do good, so you just dump that price tag, and now you force people to buy it at full price, and other people are getting it at half price now. Like, I really don't like that tactic. I think it's gross, really. Like, at least wait a few months before you drop that price. Question number 5 is, name one thing or more you wish wasn't limited edition. So I've got 3 items here. The first one is the Becca and Jaclyn Hill face palette. It's funny to me that this is the item I'm talking about because so many products that were supposed to be limited edition with Becca turned out to be permanent products that I can't figure out why they left this one by the wayside. So this was a palette with 2 highlighters and 3 blushes, and everything in here is fantastic. I love the coloring on these blushes, and I like that they're a range of colors. You've got a super bright, almost like coral pink, you've got a more tawny shade here, and then you've got a shimmery, it's kind of like a pink with some rose gold in it. And then these 2 highlighters are great. You've got Champagne Pop, which is a staple, and then, what was your name in the end? Prosecco Pop, which is a little bit too gold for me at times, but it can look quite good with some looks. And this is a phenomenal launch. So you've got so much variety in terms of face products here, but you've also got beautiful packaging that is great for travel. Like this mirror although it's moving around a little bit right now, is quite steady and sturdy. That I really, really like this item, and why didn't you make this thing permanent? This thing is absolutely wonderful. I mean, in the end, they did end up releasing Champagne Pop and Prosecco Pop as permanent products, but like, this whole thing would have been really great, because I keep mentioning recently that there's not enough products out there in palette form for the face that have a variety of items in here, and this is one of them. But so many of those palettes tend to be limited edition, and it's very frustrating. So I really wish this had been made permanent. The next item that I wish wasn't limited edition is this Tarte palette. So this is the Make Believe in Yourself Eye and Cheek palette. I really only use these as eyeshadows, and they are all shimmery, so they are basically lid shades for me, but they are so good. So often I reach for this palette, I put any one of these colors on my lid, and then I'll reach for like a deeper matte outer corner color, and it just looks fantastic. I really wish that this palette had been permanent. And the last one I'm going to talk about is something that I've mentioned before. It's the Too Faced Stardust palette. So this was in collaboration with Vegas Nay, who is an Instagrammer that I'm not especially familiar with, but these colors ended up being so good. I bought this on a whim, mostly because I really like Too Faced. I didn't know anything about Vegas Nay, but I can say that this woman knows how to put color together, because this whole thing is fantastic. This is the palette I reach for when I know I want to look good, because these colors over here, the neutral ones, work very, very well on my skin tone and my eyes. I just think that they add so much, I want to say like natural prettiness to a look. I don't tend to reach for very conventional colors, but when I use this, it's more of a natural look that's just like really amped up. So I wish this one had not been limited edition, but I am so glad that I picked this up. Such a good one. Question number 6 is, what is the thing that got away, the thing you missed and will forever regret not getting? Tarte Aqua Lilies. It's a pretty neutral palette overall, but I think it's got this blue and this coral shade that really drew me into the palette, and I will forever think of that palette and be like, damn it. Now, I'm sure I can dupe all the colors in there, but there was something just about the overall aesthetic and the appeal of the palette that's really made me regret not getting it, but that thing's never coming back. Question number 7 is, what thing that was limited edition but was made permanent later on that made the most sense to you versus the least sense to you? I think that's supposed to be 2 questions wrapped into one, but I have one answer. The thing that made the most sense to me in terms of bringing it out to be permanent is MAC's Whisper of Guilt. Now, they have only just made this permanent, but it's been like 4 or 5 years in the making, I feel like, because people go bananas for this. I got this, I think I can't even see, yeah, I got this in 2012, so quite a while ago, and this was the second version of its original release. I think it was in a holiday collection that I got this one. And I think it's a beautiful shade, but I can't really figure out why people go so crazy for it, because it's really not that unique. It's pretty much just a gold tinted highlighter that's got a lot of sheen to it. And it's pretty, but I'm sure I could find a dupe in my collection if I actually looked for it. So I'm glad that it's been made permanent so people don't have to go spending like, I don't know, I think I'd seen it for like $200 on eBay, which is just too much money. But I'm also glad that I can now use it in videos and not have people like be sad that they can't get their hands on it. So I think this was literally just launched as a permanent product for MAC within the last week or so. So you can go buy MAC's Whisper of Guilt if you really want it. It's a beautiful shade, but it was not necessarily worth the hype that so many people built it up to be. Question number 8 is, what is the item that is permanent do you think would have been better off being limited edition? And I'm going to talk about the Too Faced White Peach palette for this one. I was excited to see more from the Peaches and Cream launch, but I feel like this should not be a permanent item. It's a little bit too samey within the same palette. There's so many colors in here that did not need to be replicated. Like, I think I mentioned this in my review video, but Peach Sorbet, Fuzzy, Peach Smoothie, and Peach Suede are all basically the same color, just with a slight different tint. And I really feel like they could have done something with those 4 shades to not make them so similar. Because I mean, while they may look different in the pan, fundamentally on the eyes, they really don't come across that differently. And I feel like this could have just been a better release overall. I don't hate the palette, but I don't think it should be permanent either. It's a little bit too same, really. Question number 9 is, what is the best collab limited edition release so far according to you? I'm gonna bring that back to the Too Faced and Vegas Nay launch for the Stardust palette. Such a good launch. Again, don't even know really who this person is other than she's famous on Instagram, but I really like the color combination in here, and I really just think it was one of the best ones that I've purchased that's been a collab. I don't tend to buy a lot of collaboration stuff unless I really like the person and really like the brand, but so this has got to be my top one for that. And the last question is, what limited edition or collab limited edition item would you like to see released? And I think I would just really like to see a collection, and it doesn't matter what brand it is at all, but I would like to see either like a Final Fantasy collection or a World of Warcraft collection. So these are both video games that are near and dear to my heart. I met my husband through World of Warcraft actually, and Final Fantasy is just something that I have been in love with since I was a kid, and I've played so many of those games. So I would love to see, like, pick any of the Final Fantasy games and make a collection based on the characters in it, or do something for World of Warcraft and do the same thing. I just really want to see like video game aesthetic more in makeup. It would really make me happy, and I think it would be something a little bit different from all the usual like influencer collabs we keep seeing all the time. I'm kind of done with the influencer stuff. I understand why it happens because you can sell a lot of products, you get people pumped about it, but I want to see something new. I want to see something different, because more often than not, collaborations with YouTubers and influencers tends to be very, I want to say, one note. They tend to collaborate with people who wear a lot of neutral colors and who don't necessarily, I don't know, I feel like these people don't show who they are through their collaborations. It's more like, here's something that's gonna work for everybody. I really wanna see something unique. So I think focusing on maybe like video game aesthetic could bring out something a little bit different in makeup. So those are my answers for the limited edition tag. I'm gonna link Angelica's video down below. Please check her out, she is fantastic. And I'm gonna think of some friends to tag, and I will also link them in the description bar down below. Thanks so much for watching, and I will catch you next time. Bye.